I'm sorry that we are a little bit late, but it was a great start in the morning to see the buying in power of the stakeholders, which is very important. Thank you for your patience and listening. Let's start our program with a very, very visionary and inspiring leader. And I have come to know her in the last 3 years, and particularly the last CTR workshop and followed by the PFAS Summit. Um, Katie Angarone has been a super inspiring to me in many aspects, and she was the major force behind putting together the NJPFAS Partnership Innovation Consortium. So thank you so much. We are going to have the pleasure of listening. Katie Angarone.
Thank you. All right. Wow. That was quite a glowing intro that I now have to live up to. But I do want to remark on something that Dr. Dewan said. People not knowing about PFAS is certainly a problem, but it is also the dream. They shouldn't have to know about PFAS. So I'm so thankful to be invited here again. I'm also very inspired by the generous donation. And I have to say, it's Rutgers Donor Day, and you've just guilted me into making a much smaller donation. So thank you. It is truly an honor to be here again. Last year, we gathered to talk about all the action that we were collectively doing on PFAS, trying to clean it up, clean it out of New Jersey. And this year, the agenda is so packed with dedicated professionals from the public, the academic, and the private sectors, all working towards the same goal. And so many innovators and investors here today as well. You'll hear technical experts working on decontamination research, government leaders on their goals and their vision for the future of the work in New Jersey, and folks working on implementation. Our very own DEP, Kristen Tedesco, will be here today as well. And as hopefully everyone in this room knows, New Jersey has been a trailblazer in this space with a strong focus on drinking water, because we know that that is the most significant human exposure. And that hasn't changed. PFAS is a priority for Governor Sherrill as well. And the next two slides are certainly not new information. Let's see if I can get this right. Okay. But I do think it's important to sort of ground ourselves in why we're here. PFAS, as we heard, is a very large class of chemicals. And the ones that we tend to be concerned about are bioaccumulative, persistent, and toxic, making them really a challenging problem for all of us. They also happen to be soluble, and they move around in the environment, as shown on this lovely diagram. So what is discharged into the air makes its way to the ground, it makes its way to the water, it makes its way through the water cycle, as shown. And the result is that it accumulates in plants and animals and in us, which is really concerning. And that is why we have been working on it at the department for 20 years, and it is why you are all here today. Because reducing human exposure is important, and as we heard before, it will take all of us. It is a systems problem, I agree. And that's worth reminding ourselves at the beginning of this day, a really impressive day that will be about hopefully sharing, collaboration, lessons learned. And these spaces and these conversations, this is how we identify, reduce, and eliminate PFAS from New Jersey, and therefore from New Jerseyans. Because that's really what this is about. It's about human exposure. Human exposures, as you see on the screen, there's very real health effects associated with that. And it's worth touching on that as we start our day today as well. PFAS impact people, our friends, our family, our neighbors. And that's why we've prioritized drinking water, because we know that water that contains PFAS has the potential to contribute significant to human exposure, more so than other common sources such as food and food packaging and consumer products, house dust, all of those things. I often share this slide because I am so proud that we have been working in the PFAS space for 20 years. Particularly, I am proud of our first in the nation drinking water standards. I know that we are lucky in New Jersey because I get to work with a lot of other states to have authority and to have a Drinking Water Quality Institute. And that advisory group really helps us to identify health concerns in our drinking water and address them with standards. We also have a public that expects clean water. They demand it, and they should. As you can see, we've taken a lot of steps to identify, to understand, to notify, and as appropriate, to regulate PFAS. I've added 2 important milestones to this recently. In July 2025, the department released the Forever No More, which is the state's strategy, which documents our past progress on PFAS. It identifies ongoing challenges, but it also sets forth our next steps, including the most recent step we took, which was an initiative that took years, frankly, which was the collection of PFAS-containing firefighting foam known as aqueous film-forming foam, or AFFF, a little easier to say. The use of AFFF was banned by law in New Jersey in 2024 with an effective date that the legislature has just extended for our municipal fire departments to 2027. It is expensive to properly dispose of and to decontaminate equipment. And so with in partnership with the Department of Community Affairs, the department provided funding and guidance, and ultimately working with a contractor, Revive, we took 146,000 gallons of AFFF off the street, destroying it responsibly. We're proud to complete this next step, to check this off of our to-do list. And there's a lot more steps for us to take. There's more frontiers that we need to venture into, and that's what I'm going to spend a few minutes today talking about. Our strategy is really our roadmap, and we will continue to work to reduce exposure by identifying, reducing, and eliminating. You're going to hear me say that over and over again because that's it. That's the basic arch of what we need to do. But we need to do that at the source. So what does that mean? It means that we need to be targeted and to prioritize our efforts on the work that will do the most to remove PFAS. It means we need to look upstream of our drinking water sources to identify where PFAS is entering the water cycle, interrupt or reduce the flow into the system. And we know that the greatest return on investment requires this targeted approach that prioritizes the removal of larger and concentrated sources of PFAS so that it never gets into our drinking water. It never gets into our environment. So complementing our strategy, and with the leadership from Senator Greenstein, who you'll be hearing from today, as well as Senators Smith, Hayter, Swain, Colossus-Gill, with the amazing resources provided by the Protecting Against Forever Chemicals law, the DEP is working to craft a source reduction program that will have meaningful impact and that will build on the work we've already done. So what are our frontiers? What are our opportunities? It seems maybe strange to talk about community assistance, but that's where we meet the people. And DEP will continue to support water systems as they navigate state and federal standards, and also private well owners. Also, it's really important that we have some good communication and educational tools that help people navigate not only the DEP and their process, but also learn about protecting themselves. So we are working to refresh our website, make it perhaps a little bit more accessible, and more importantly, to develop a local government corner. And that will be dedicated to providing local governments with resources they can trust and lean on for decision-making, and importantly, for public communication. Focusing on transparency, I touched on this last year. How about there? There we go. All right, we can be nimble. That's fine. Where the heck was I? All right, so yes, the tool that we've been developing with stakeholder input will it will be a publicly accessible visualization tool that displays our and helps users understand where New Jersey has sampled for PFAS and where we have contamination. This tool is being developed, as I said, with stakeholder input. We've done some beta testing. Thank you if you were part of that. And we're nearly there. And what I love about this tool, all the tools we build, I say, must be built out of Lego. As we get more data, we will just make it more robust. So keep an eye out for that. All right, we also continue to develop and implement our own PFAS science and research agenda, pursuing projects that address critical gaps, just like all of you are. Most recently, and I think we presented on this in the fall, we released a soil survey across New Jersey. I invite you to check it out. It's on our website. And we are always and continuing to partner with other state and federal agencies such as EPA to perform work with nationwide application. And we are working to, I'm just going to be going in there. We are always identifying research gaps and expanding our agenda and looking for new partnerships such as the New Jersey PFAS Partnership Innovation Consortium at NJIT that you have stood up. I'm so excited about that. We also work with other states who have moved through these frontiers, particularly on the science side, especially in the spaces that New Jersey is just starting to get into at the state level. And because we are committed to transparency, DEP will ensure that research studies are published with clear research methods, results, and data, either as technical reports or as peer-reviewed scientific journals. And as a locally elected official, it's important for me to note that we also do this in a fact sheet. We put things in a very accessible manner for policymakers, so keep an eye out for that as well. All right, in the water world, as for our water resources, the department is already working with wastewater dischargers and will continue to do that. We'll continue to analyze incoming data and to help them identify, reduce, and eliminate their sources. But to carry this work forward will require the proposal of surface water quality standards. Establishing those standards has been accomplished in other states. They're active, they're working, and we are looking to their phased approach to address this significant contribution of PFAS into our water. And we need to work with our wastewater treatment facilities to help them reduce the amount of PFAS that's even coming into and moving through their systems in the first place. And that's really the first step. The proposal of this rule will accomplish this, and it is a critical element in the all-hands approach that our colleagues in the drinking water systems are already knee-deep in. While biosolids, the next frontier, are not likely to be a major issue in New Jersey because we just don't land apply all that often and consistently in too many places, we do need to get our arms around it. We need to understand if there's any there. So we need to form a plan, again, to identify, reduce, and eliminate on that frontier. We have another opportunity to reduce sources in water with our landfills. Landfills are almost always associated with PFAS. And our regulation of landfills is necessarily complex, let me say, because landfills are complex. We've got open landfills, closed landfills, active landfills, legacy landfills, and even some unknown landfills. So we need a thoughtful approach, and I am excited to announce that internally we are standing up a landfill working group, and we're going to outline a strategy that we'll be bringing to stakeholders. Now, this one very much excites me. Unlike people served by public drinking water, our private well owners do not get regular communication about their local groundwater. They have to go and seek it out. And they certainly don't get a reminder to test. And we are working on an annual notice to health officials and the public that will be tailored to each municipality in New Jersey to remind them to test, including for PFAS, and to let them know about the top 5 contaminants found through the Private Well Testing Act. So we're very excited about that reminder and hope to encourage testing and treatment. And we talked about the AFFF ban and our collection program, and we will continue to work with our colleagues at the Department of Community Affairs to support our municipal firefighters as the ban date approaches, and to really to reduce this source together. Dredging is another frontier, and I'm excited to say that it has been robustly addressed already by Michigan. I've had the great pleasure to speak with them, and while DEP starts to build a sediment testing database to inform our next steps, we are looking to Michigan and their approach as we form our policy. As more information is obtained, PFAS sampling will likely be required in our dredging world on a case-by-case basis. Now, regarding remediation, as we encounter new PFAS, we talked about there being 15,000 of them, so that's going to be likely to happen. And as we encounter the ones that have a concerning health effect, we need to be cognizant and continue to develop remediation standards like the ones we're hoping to adopt for Gen X. All right, and this air is the source that I think gets left behind, forgotten. So we're not going to do that. Currently, PFAS are not regulated by the EPA under the Clean Air Act. In August of 2024, New Jersey joined New Mexico and North Carolina, and we petitioned the EPA to list 4 PFAS under the Clean Air Act. The deadline for EPA to respond has passed. I am not at all sure that they will act, but our science is clear here. What goes up comes back down. And it lands in our drinking water, in our bodies, and it causes costly and devastating health impacts. So we've got an internal work group that's looking at this from every angle as well, and our next steps must be aimed at supporting regulation of PFAS in air. So we'll continue to work towards that, and we will engage the regulated entities as we do it. This is, again, another frontier where other states have already done the work, North Carolina and New Hampshire. We need to catch up. And last but not least, finally, we've started to explore PFAS in our natural resources, but there's a lot more to do. Beyond fish tissue, which we already analyze and we will continue to analyze, and some limited plant uptake studies, there are opportunities in New Jersey to look at things like deer and other plants and animals, for example, in areas where we happen to be already collecting samples of blood and tissue, or on sites where we have lots of environmental data. DEP is committed to understanding the potential ecological and human health impacts where site-specific contamination is of particular concern and is being already investigated. Certain fish and game species, because of their likelihood for consumption, may be tested for contaminant concentrations in those places, as well as faunal species of ecological concern. And we are working very closely with our colleagues at the New Jersey Department of Agriculture as well, as they work through concerns with crops and livestock when it's implicated. So those are our frontiers. That's our to-do list. It's long. And we're sort of relying on all of you to help us along as we do this work. It's challenging, but I have to say, I am so comforted by spaces like this where 300 people come together to figure it out. So thank you so much for attending today, and I wish you a great, great day. Thanks.
Thank you so much. As always, your talk, your speech is always so inspiring and so informative. So thank you for enlightening us. One quick announcement, on your desk, there is a second QR code, which is for you to ask questions. So instead of moving the mic around over here, it's not very efficient. So please use your smartphone, go to the QR code, and type your question for the speakers. So that's the same QR code is going to work for every session. I have my great friend and partner, Dr. Sean Chester, with the computer over there, and his job is to reconcile the question and ask the question on your behalf. So use that particular QR code. So by the time they are doing, I have a question for you.
Of course.
So as the Chief Strategy Officer of the New Jersey DEP, you have done a tremendous job in setting up the standards which you referred earlier. But as the chemicals are evolving and getting into the more products and all the systems, subsystems around us, how do you prioritize developing standards in the future?
Yeah. We do lean very heavily on our Drinking Water Quality Institute, as well as our Division of Science and Research. One of my favorite questions that I ask Dr. Nick Procopio, who leads up that division, is what keeps you up at night? What's next? And one of the things he has told me is microplastics, which is not the topic today. However, I do believe I got an excellent question last year about the co-occurrence of microplastics and PFAS. So that is something that we are noodling as we develop this source reduction. But another amazing thing that we were asked to do by the legislature is to take a look at regulating PFAS as a class. And that is a challenge, I will tell you. The report to the legislature has just left my desk, so it is on its way. I apologize, it was late. Transitions are hard. And I will tell you, California is doing some pretty amazing work in that space. And I really cannot thank my colleagues across the nation enough. There's just too many fronts to be fighting this on and too many compounds. And I've been doing this work for 30 years almost. Leaning on the commissioner of Minnesota and the commissioner out in California has been just indispensable. It's been so important. So that's part of it as well, is this really all the states in the nation working together, as well as what keeps you up at night. One of the things I did probably 8 years ago was to set up, we have a wonderful environmental library, which is a subset of the state library that is housed at DEP for our practitioners to keep us fresh. And I set up a PFAS query. So I would say every other month, our staff, whoever wants it, gets 2,000 papers. I mean, it's just absurd, this amount of science. But they all look through. And so, in those sorts of exercises, that's how we're figuring out where to go next. But there also is this idea that one by one is not going to work. So what are the innovative approaches?
Thank you so much. I think you have given us a lot of hope, because when we hear that so many states and so many stakeholders at the national level are working together, because this problem of this size, already embedded in the society, cannot be just addressed by one or two hands. So we all have to put all of our hands on the table.
And I'll add to it that I've talked to Italy, Germany, and Belgium as well. So it really is a global effort.
We'll take one question. Sean, do we have one?
So we have more than
well,
I was trying to make up time and run off the stage. Did you all see that?
We have more than that, so we'll get answers to all later. So trying to combine two into one here. So what's the regulatory framework that supports the source investigation and remediation? And can the private sector be involved with that?
Well, I do think we'll probably likely to build it on our existing regulatory framework of New Jersey's amazing environmental laws. If you want to read about that, we have something called the State of the Environment that we put out in January. I think you would be astounded to learn that New Jersey had a Clean Air Act before the feds did. There are so many amazing that we've been regulating floodplains since 1948. So I think the regulatory framework exists. We just will continue to do science to support it. I hope that is responsive to the question.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me.